This is the ultimate guide to inshore spinning rods. So in this video, we're going to break down the three main criteria in rods. That's action, that's power, and that's length. And a lot of this video is going to be applicable to every rod out there, but we're going to focus this in on inshore spinning rods specifically. So first off, we're going to define these three things, and length and power are pretty self-explanatory, easy to understand. Action can be a little difficult, especially if you're new to fishing. So we're going to help you define that. Then we're going to help you put these three criteria together to make sure that you buy the right rod for your application. Also, we're going to break down some of our top brands. We're going to talk about their warranties and see how they take care of you after you spend money on a rod with them. And we're also going to touch on some of my favorite models within these top brands. So if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, guys, please go ahead and subscribe to the channel and enable notifications. It helps us out a lot, and it's an easy, free way to support what we do and make sure that you don't miss out on any future videos. And hit that like button if you're enjoying this so far. So let's start with action here. And action is probably the least understood of the three. So when you walk into the store, any store for that matter, but especially our store, we've got thousands and thousands of rods in stock. You're going to see things like fast, you're going to see extra fast. It's on certain models. You're going to see moderate fast, you're going to see moderate. There's a whole bunch of different ratings there. But in a nutshell, what action is designating on the rod, what it's communicating to you when you see it, is where in the rod the bend is happening. Is it happening closer to the tip, or is it happening more so in the midsection? So whenever you see fast, most of the movement and the bend of the rod is happening towards the tip. Whenever you see moderate, more of that bend is happening towards the midsection of the rod. When you see extra fast, that's even more so towards the tip. Extra fast, even more so towards the tip with a stiffer midsection. Then moderate is on the other end of the spectrum. So you're gonna have a little more wiggle room in the middle of the rod and less out towards the tip. Now, and there's kind of a misconception out there too that faster rods are stronger or more powerful, and that's just really not true. So if you had two rods in your hand, let's say one in each hand, they were both 7-foot medium power rods. One was fast, one was moderate. They're gonna have the same amount of power. But here's the difference. When you shake them in your hand, the midsection of the fast rod is gonna feel much stiffer than the midsection of the moderate rod. So how does that affect your fishing? So if you're someone that throws lighter baits, you wanna be throwing a faster action rod. Think about the cast with lighter baits. Usually it's much more of a snap cast. It's definitely overhead unless you're trying to get under the mangroves, but mainly it's overhead. If you're casting with more heavy baits, a lot of the time it's a lower lob cast, kind of low to high, and you're just lobbing, let's say a 2-ounce NLBN, you're just lobbing it out there. If you snap cast hard with a 2-ounce NLBN, you're gonna break a lot of rods doing that. So a lot of people cast those like this. Unless you have a very strong, very powerful rod that's very heavy, you can throw it over top. But generally speaking, the heavier baits, you're doing more of a lob cast. The lighter baits is an overhead, more snap cast. So these faster rods really work well for the lighter baits. So on the live end of things, you're talking about smaller greenbacks, you're talking about shrimp. And then on the artificial side of things, you're talking about little paddle tails, so 3-inch Z-Man paddle tails, like on 1/8-ounce jig heads and 1/4-ounce jig heads. And the faster action rods are gonna cast these better than moderate rods. And another thing these faster rods do better than the moderate rods too is accuracy. So if you're someone that's sight fishing a lot, that's where I live. Foot and a half of water, real shallow stuff, push pulling around, looking for fish to cast at. I can hit a fish so much better with a faster rod than I can a moderate rod. Most of the fast action rods recover very quickly. So when the rod's loaded, when you're coming forward to when you stop and let the bait go, that rod doesn't just wiggle around. Especially if it's a nicer rod, the graphite has a lot to do with this, or whatever carbon they're using. But when the rod's bending, it comes to a stop very fast, and that helps you be extremely accurate. The moderate rods will have a tendency to want to have a slower recovery is what they call it. So it's gonna go back and forth, and that's, as the rod's doing that, as your bait's going out, that's gonna affect your accuracy quite a bit, as well as your distance. If that rod's going back and forth, it's pulling that line side to side within the guide, and that's gonna hurt your distance a little bit. Now, another interesting concept here is the actual fish fighting experience between a fast rod and a moderate rod. And so let's start with a moderate rod in this case. So I really like moderate rods for fish like tarpon. If you ever tarpon fished, you know exactly how violent they are. Nothing jumps and shakes its head as violently as a tarpon, and they're absolute masters of the game at throwing hooks. So with a moderate rod, you're getting more rod bend into the fight than you would with a faster rod, and with more rod bending, you're getting more shock absorption through that rod. So they tend to hold fish better than faster rods. So for most tarpon fishing, I'll take the trade-off. I'll lose a little bit of accuracy because I don't necessarily need that for tarpon fishing on the beach, or if you're bass fishing, you really don't need it at all. You're just sending baits back behind the boat. You don't need to be accurate with casting. Take the trade-off, fish a moderate rod, and you're probably gonna boat more fish than you would if you had a fast rod. So now let's talk about power, which seems pretty self-explanatory, but in the store with our customer base, we find a lot of people fishing rods heavier than they really need. Now, if they're more comfortable with that in the hand, that's fine. You know, it's whatever they want to do, but you really don't need as heavy of a rod as you think you do. The three main powers we're going to talk about for this inshore application is going to be the medium light, it's going to be the medium, and it's going to be the medium heavy. These three cover you for just about anything you could find inshore, with the exception of like big cobia and big tarpon. So let's start this power conversation on the light end of things. So I have a 7-foot, 5 to 10 pound bull bait stealth sniper. Absolutely love that rod. It's right there. And I fish this a lot on low tide, open water situations. I've caught redfish well over 30 inches. I've caught snook well over 30 inches on this rod. As long as the fish has nowhere to go, you're not really gonna get in trouble fishing a rod this light. It's got way more power than you would think it has. I've got a line strength video. I'll put it right there that you should watch. You can see exactly how hard I can pull with that exact rod on a scale, and it will really shock you. But the key there in fishing a rod this light is making sure the fish has nowhere to go. An open flat, there's no docks, there's no mangroves for the fish to get you in trouble in, because if he wants to go there and he's got the ability to go there, the fish is gonna go there. And with a rod that light, a lot of times on the bigger fish, you don't have the power to keep them out of there. But I find too that as far as the trout goes, rods like this, in a similar way as tarpon, trout are pretty violent and they have very soft mouths. So a lighter rod like this, even on the big fish, does very, very well. And you'll find that you'll get more trout in with a lighter rod. And they're just not as powerful as something like a redfish or snook. So now the medium, Bull Bait calls it a 6 to 12. Some of these companies vary quite a bit, and we'll talk about the differentiation of companies' actions and powers later on, because there's a lot of variance between brands. But a medium power is kind of like your daily driver, I think. It does everything pretty dang well. The medium power can really get the job done on just about any trout swimming around out there, just about any redfish, at least in our area. I'm not talking about you freaking 45 inchers up in Louisiana and stuff like that. That's a weird phenomenon that we don't experience much in the Tampa Bay area, but just about all of our redfish and trout, you can get the job done very, very well with a medium power rod. And most of our snook too. And this goes back to the medium light conversation a little bit. If you're fishing more open water, there's really not a snook you're not gonna be able to get in on a medium power rod. Now, if you're fishing mangroves on a high tide, the redfish and snook are up into the mangroves. Or let's say you're fishing passes and stuff like that. The pass game is not really the conversation of this context here. There's some more specialized rods that you're probably gonna have to use in those scenarios. However, as far as the flats, mangroves, docks, stuff like that, when they're in the cover, that's when I'm definitely gonna step up to the medium heavy. In those situations, you just really, really need the extra power of the medium heavy to be able to crank those fish out. They're gonna dump you on the smaller rods if you get into those bigger fish. So if you're just getting into the game, if you're just starting out, or you don't want to buy a bunch of setups, I would definitely live on the heavier side of things. So 6 to 12 or 8 to 17, the medium or medium heavy is where you'd want to be. So now let's move on to length. And length seems very self-explanatory as well, but let's break down some of the different length of rods and some of the concepts here. So it's no doubt that a longer rod casts a bait farther. I mean, look at surf rods. There's surf rods 13, 14 feet long. The longer the rod is, the faster you can get the tip moving and the longer you can throw the bait. But there's trade-offs here. Nobody's gonna put a 14-foot rod on their boat, or nobody's gonna take a 14-foot rod wading on their local grass flat. So when you move down to a shorter rod, you get much better accuracy. So I think the happy medium, that's why most common sizes are 7 foot and 7'6", because it's a really good mix of being very accurate, but still being able to get good long casts out there. So since 7 and 7'6" are the two most popular, let's break those down. So for the most part, I've got a 7-foot rod in my hands just about all the time. And here's why. So I fish from a boat 99% of the time. I don't do a ton of wading or fishing from shore. And a lot of the time I'm fishing on a small, quiet skiff. A lot of the time we can get close enough to where I don't have to make a gigantic cast, and a 7-foot rod gets the job done almost every time. I have not really been in very many situations where I could not cast what I was throwing with a 7-foot rod far enough before the fish spooked. And the sight fishing I do really requires really good accuracy, so the 7-foot rod just really helps me dial it in and put the bait exactly where I need to put it. Now, if I wade fished a lot, I would definitely be throwing a 7'6" just to get a little bit more distance on that. And in that situation, you don't have the advantage of really being able to move around near as much as you do from a boat. So I would take that trade-off any day. 8-foot rods tend to be the standard for tarpon, and I think it's really just because of that shock. They do help you cast farther, but a lot of times that's not super important tarpon fishing. They just really give you that shock like we talked about earlier when we were talking about actions, but 8-foot is definitely the standard for tarpon. So let's talk about warranty now, and we're going to highlight a few of our top brands, and we're going to start with Bull Bay. Bull Bay is our #1 selling rod brand in the store. Their rods are absolutely phenomenal. I love my snipers and stealth snipers. Those are kind of my favorite rods from them, but they've got a whole bunch of other ones. But their warranty is by far the best in the game, and that plays a role in how many we sell for sure. If you break your Bull Bay rod and you're local to us, you can literally bring the rod in, no receipt, no questions asked, give us the broken rod, grab a new one off the rack, whatever it was, it's got to be the same rod, but you can take a brand new one, no questions asked, no charge. Now, if you're not local to us, contact Bull Bay, and you can either send the rod back or take it to them if you're nearby their facility in Lakeland. And for $40, no matter how it broke, they will replace it, no questions asked. Now, if it was a defect in the rod, obviously their lifetime warranty will cover that, and they will take care of you. But accidents happen, they acknowledge that. A lot of companies don't. They just act like things don't happen. Fans, car doors, stuff like that, high stick, whatever. Bull Bay knows that kind of stuff happens from time to time, and for $40, they will cover replacement for those incidents. So let's talk about St. Croix's warranty now. So they kind of tier it. So their first tier is a 1-year warranty, and that's on their entry-level rods. So that's rods like the Premier and the Mojo Avid series. The next tier is their 5-year warranty rods. And that's like the rest of the Mojo series. That's the Tidemaster and Triumph series rods. And then their Rift rods as well. And there's a bunch of freshwater rods in there too, but again, we're hitting the inshore saltwater game. Next is their 15-year warranty rod. So this is more top dollar type rods. This is like the Avid and Legend series, or the Siege on the Surf Rod series. Now for St. Croix's warranty, you do need to register the rod within 30 days of purchase. So keep your receipt. Go on their website, fill in your serial number and your information in there, and make sure that you get that done within 30 days to activate your warranty. So next up is Shimano, and their stuff is different than St. Croix and Bull Bay as well. So Shimano gives you 2 different options as far as warranty service for a broken product. So option 1 is their standard 1-year warranty, which 1 year kind of sucks, especially when you're buying some expensive stuff, but that's what Shimano's decided to do. So if you have an issue within the 1-year period, you submit your information on their website and you send the rod back, and then they assess the situation and they contact you about repair or replacement based on their assessment of what happened. So it's kind of up to them. Option 2 is their Expediter program, and this really is very, very nice for their higher end rods. I mean, it really goes across the board. It works for all their rods, but you take the best advantage of this if you have a much higher end rod. So here's how this works. So you can go through their Expediter program. You can purchase whatever rod you like, whatever rod you had. You can purchase it at 50% off of retail, which is super nice. Now, within 30 days of receiving that, you do have to send your broken rod back, or else they will charge you again full price for that rod. So you got to send it back, can't cheat it. But they do offer 2-day shipping for that rod that you buy at 50% off, which is super nice. So if you're just trying to get on the water real quick, don't want to spend however much on a brand new rod, you can take 50% off of retail, buy it, get it in 2 days, and get out there. Now, this is limited to 1 time per rod. So let's say you got a Terramar, you high stick something, you snap it off, you get your new one, you fish, you do it again. You cannot do that 50% off retail and buy another one again. It's only 1 time. So there's warranty for some of our top brands. Now there's something different I want to discuss now. I kind of hinted this earlier in the video, but there's a lot of variation. I mean, length is length. Nobody calls a 7-foot rod that's that's actually 7'4" or whatever. Nobody does that. However, as far as line ratings and powers and actions go, there's a lot of variation between brands. So I've got 3 rods here, all the same length, power, and action. So these are all 7 foot fast, or the Loomis is an extra fast, medium power rods. So this is the Terramar XX, again, 7 foot, medium, fast action. This is the fancy Loomis NRX Plus Inshore, again, 7 foot, medium power. This is an extra fast action though. Then a bull bait sniper, 7 foot, 6 to 12, which is a medium power and a fast action as well. Let's look at line ratings though. So again, all the same spec. This is a 6 to 12 pound is what bull bait calls a medium power. With the NRX, you've got a 10 to 15 pound is what they call a medium power. And the Terramar XX, look at that, a 10 to 30. And again, it's a medium power. So one difference here with the Shimano stuff is they rate almost all their stuff in Power Pro braid ratings, which is different. Most everything for the past 20 whatever years or more, I mean more than that, was all rated with mono because braid didn't really exist. So there's rods out there that are rated on braid, and there's rods out there that are rated on mono, and clearly there's going to be a difference because braid is stronger and thinner in diameter than monofilament. But this is just a weird thing. So then as far as action concerned, again, these are both fast action rods. The Sniper feels significantly faster, again, stiffer in the midsection than this Terramar XX does. Then obviously the NRX being extra fast in this model definitely feels faster than the two. But the point I'm trying to make here is that there's all kinds of variation in power and in action. So the best way to make sure you're getting the right rod is come into the store. Again, we got thousands of rods here. Pick them up, feel them out, and see which one is the one that you like. So let's go through some of my favorite models. We just got a few here. We got like 6 rods pulled from a handful of different brands. So let's go over each one real quick. So I've been preaching bull bait a lot. This is that Sniper that I talked so highly of. And of all the rods in the store, this is probably the one that's in my hand the most. This is the one I catch the most fish on. I just love it for those smaller baits. It works great for cut bait too and live bait, which I don't throw a ton of live bait. I throw some cut bait here and there. But as far as artificials and cut bait, this is one of my favorites for sure. And here's a super popular one from Shimano. This is their Zodius, and this thing is just absolutely gorgeous. The blank's got that DNA. They call it Spiral X wrap. Spiral X just makes it super strong, and it's incredibly lightweight as well. This looks killer with a Vanford on it as well, but it's got a very unique kind of carbon monocoque butt, they call it, so the blank actually kind of separates out into that shape. They're not adding something over, but this rod's crazy lightweight, and again, you're looking at a very fast action rod here, very stiff midsection, and it's just a killer rod. And here's one of my favorites from St. Croix. This is their Avid series. This happens to be a 7.3 medium light. It's got a nice cork grip there, very soft cork. I like the reel seat design too. It's very similar to the Loomis stuff where the cork is integrated to the top, so you're holding the cork, not touching as much of the plastic on there, but great feeling rod. And I love these blanks. These Avid blanks are absolutely incredible, and this kind of splits the difference between the 7 foot and 7.3, so you're getting a little better casting ability than a 7, but you're still maintaining most of that accuracy that you would get out of a 7 foot. It's got small guides on it. It's very, very lightweight, and the color's gorgeous. But yeah, this is a killer rod from St. Croix. And back to Shimano, we talked about this rod. This is that Terramar XX. This is a 7 foot medium fast, and Shimano's just incredible with the technology they're doing, and that Spiral X and the High Power X. So much like the Zodius, this has that carbon wrap on it, but the blank is so much thinner than any other blank of the couple rods we've talked about so far, and that just feels good to me. I like a thin feeling blank. It makes you feel like you're fishing lighter tackle than you really are. Keeps it lightweight. Again, we've got the similar reel seat handle combination where the cork goes up. I like that this is becoming a more popular thing now because these are very, very comfortable in the hand. But yeah, Terramar XX, phenomenal rod series. And lastly here, we got to end with a bang. We've got that NRX Plus Inshore, and this is an absolute joy to fish. I think this is my favorite overall inshore rod that I've been able to fish, and this is kind of a no frills, very simple rod. Doesn't have a lot of flashy stuff. Loomis is not like that. You just got the classic blue wraps that you get with all their NRX rods. It doesn't really show the Spiral X like the other Shimano rods, but it still has a Spiral X, so it's a thin, very, very strong blank that's incredibly lightweight. And this is my favorite reel seat in the game, 100%. So very similar. Again, we've still got the cork going up here. We've got a cork screw lock there, keeps the reel in place. You got the CI4 Plus material, very lightweight plastic material. It's very strong. Split grip, back to a nice butt section. And it's just crazy high quality cork, high quality everything. And it's hard to see the value here. It really is, because this rod is $625. I get it. most people are not going to spend that on a rod. I'm not saying that you absolutely need to or that you should even, but this rod is absolutely incredible. It casts so freaking far. It's got a whole bunch of guides on it. They're just everywhere, and this rod casts so far, and I've caught some really, really good fish on this rod. So that about does it for the video, guys. That was a lot of information. Guys, if you enjoyed it, please hit the like button, guys. It helps us out a ton. But let us know in the comments, what are your favorite rods? What type of rods are you fishing in different situations? We want to hear from you down below. And if you have any questions on anything I covered, again, it was a lot of information. Let us know. I'll try to respond to every comment down there, and we can get you done. Thanks for watching, guys. Really appreciate it. We'll catch you in the next video.